Excelsior!
Welcome to part 2 of our look at the famous battles of the Marvel Universe from the 1990 card set. If you're just joining us somehow, this is your first one. We've been going through this 1990 card set for several episodes now because there's a lot to talk about every single card that introduced us to the Marvel Universe as kids in the 1990s specifically. But we already covered the first 10 or so of these iconic, momentous occasions. But we're going to jump right into the next set of famous battles from the Marvel card set.
Boy, Colossus's thigh. Look at that.
Chikes.
It's like a double thigh.
Dark Phoenix Saga, like most of us need no further introduction to this because it was told so well in X-Men The Last Stand.
Yeah. So well.
But, I mean, basically, yeah. Like
the Juggernaut bit.
The ongoing saga of, like, Phoenix, like, after their ship crashes in a river and then she comes back as Phoenix and Phoenix shoots up out of the ground and you're like, oh, she's fine. I guess she's just not Marvel Girl anymore. She's
way more powerful.
Suddenly way more powerful. And then over time, that just becomes this uncontrollable power that gets the better of her and she ends up blowing up a star that kills an entire planet. Billions of people, and then the Shi'ar are like, look, you can't be flying around with a woman who blew up a star and could do it again. And you got to come in, like, we're coming for you. And then the X-Men, of course, are like, no.
And also around during that story, was the introduction of the Hellfire Club, who kind of like twist her in a sexy way to be the Black Queen of the Hellfire Club.
Yes, yeah, opposite like Emma Frost is the White Queen, and just to, like, to mess with her to like put the pieces in place to make her transformation into a Dark Phoenix more likely, and to like twist her into their vision of what they wanted to be.
And the poor X-Men had to fight her. They didn't want to, but they did, and it is the peak.
Everybody here does look very reluctant.
It is the peak of John Byrne and Chris Claremont's run on the series, I'd say. They'd been building to it for years, though Days of Future Past would come after this, but yeah, it's just so amazing. Like,
it's a fun story, and you can get this as its own collection, its own trade, just this saga, and it's definitely worth reading.
I can't emphasize this enough. This is one of those comics I know I never read, but think I did. Because I read all these comic cards that told me everything about the Dark Phoenix Saga.
Yeah. Oh, and the funny story behind it, too, is that she originally wasn't going to die in it. They were like, you know what, we'll just deactivate her powers. The Shi'ar forgives her. But the editor-in-chief at the time, Jim Shooter, said, no, she did, like, interstellar genocide. She cannot continue living. And so he then rewrote it, and they made him redraw it at the last minute of her being killed and sentenced to death. And
that's why it's like all stick figures. It's a really weird last page.
And so she died, and though she would be back within a few years because they just couldn't keep her dead, and it would turn out that that's not even Jean Grey at all. It's the Phoenix Force pretending to be the human Jean Grey.
Well, all along, the real Jean Grey was still at the bottom of that river in a cocoon.
Thought she was dead. I was.
Yes. Next, the X-Men versus the Avengers.
That didn't happen just 2 years ago.
Yeah, not to be confused with Avengers versus X-Men, the 2012 series.
Different.
Totally different.
Basically, it boils down to like, mutants like to keep things in their own family and their own world. So when a piece of asteroid M falls onto the Earth, people are like, well, wait, is Magneto did he do that on purpose? Is he gonna use that to do something bad? Magneto at this point in the comics is trying to kind of be a good guy, and he's trying to like, yeah, okay, well, I guess maybe I'll try your way, but I really hate it. And they try, and everybody converges at all this like collapsed shit, and are like, get him, Magneto! Like, and of course the X-Men are like, we will deal with Magneto. Don't fucking worry about it. And the Avengers are like, you need to come in and stand trial. And then all the while, there's a Soviet super soldier shit going on where they're like, you got to pay for all the stuff you done to Russia, buddy. So there's all these people fighting over what to do about Magneto, and then they're like, you know what? Yeah, actually, we don't like the mutants in general either. So Magneto's plan becomes, I'm going to, through a way I will not explain, go into everyone's mind and remove prejudice from their brains. Which, in his mind, in Magneto, you're like, yeah, I could see him wanting to do that because in the first X-Men movie, that's also kind of what he does. He's like, I'll turn everyone into mutants, therefore, you can't be prejudiced.
Everybody will empathize.
So it's also kind of famous for the last issue changing art and writing teams. Like there's just like there's
not a good sign.
There's a clear vision for what's happening, and the last issue is just like, like you don't get a big like Magneto going full monster mode where he's like he kind of is repentant or whatever.
I was just about to compliment it from the publishing dates. A limited series that went from April to July on schedule in 4 issues.
Wow. Boy,
I dare you to name as many people as you can.
I got to say, no, I think I can name everybody, but this is some loser teams here. Well, Avengers is okay, but so on the X-Men side, you've got Longshot, Dazzler, Quicksilver, pre-transformation Psylocke.
That's
so
what I was
she's
confused
just
about.
has mental powers. Very soon she'd become Japanese.
Yeah.
Storm, great, and Wolverine, great. So
That's who that is.
then meanwhile, on the Avengers side, you got Cap. You've got, I believe she was Captain Marvel at that time.
Yeah.
Later to be named Photon. And then you got Thor. I mean, Thor can beat all the Avengers.
Yeah.
Honestly, those Avengers have no chance. You got Dr. Druid. Who fucking cares? You got Black Knight, which I would like to see his mystical
Martin
sword.
Lawrence?
I'd like to see his mystical sword versus Wolverine's claws. Like that's a neat idea. And then Shulk, who I do love. So I mean,
I'm really feeling it.
The Avengers are okay. Dr. Druid is just like such a loser, though. But man,
Yeah, but
he's a goofy magic guy and an old man.
yes.
There
Love
you
that
go.
art. This is so great. So these guys have fought 8 million times before,
Yeah.
but this one's
Why is this one special?
Well, this one is special because it's the first time he fought the new X-Men or the giant-sized X-Men.
Yeah, after like the X-Men as a comic, really quick, was just kind of floundering and not really popular. It was never popular. But then Claremont and
Dave Cockrum and
Yeah.
Len Wein.
with Giant X-Men #1 made a brand new team, a multinational, multicultural team of Colossus, Banshee, Storm, Cyclops,
A Russian, a
Nightcrawler.
Scot, an African,
Yeah.
a Canadian, a German,
Just,
all on one
like
team.
all in one team, all like and not getting along, like and
So
that's
they
what
were-
makes it so much fun to read. Like they're a team that doesn't really get along, and over time learn to cooperate and become a great team. But this is the first time they're like, "Oh, Magneto, we'll kick his ass," and they get destroyed.
Yeah, so Cyclops is the only one on the team who's like he was the leader. He's the only original X-Men who stuck around. All the
Yeah.
others left, and he had the shitty job of like, okay, guys, I guess I'm gonna make you a team now. The only team I've led was the ones of all my friends I grew up with. But and then they go to Muir Island to help Moira McTaggart, and oh shit, Magneto's here, and it's the first time it was the first time all the new X-Men fought him. Wolverine, he's like, yeah, Wolverine, flip. Oh, Colossus, flip. Who cares? Like, and then he buries Nightcrawler under debris, and he beats Storm and Storm tries lightning. He's like, lightning and magnets are basically the same thing. Like, it just
Banshee's the
doesn't do
wild
anything.
card. Magneto can't do shit against that.
No, so
Maybe like throw a trumpet mute.
so they fight to a standstill, and the only way they can even escape is because Cyclops hits his force field with full optic blast, the hardest optic blast he ever shot, and that staggers Magneto enough for them to escape. And that was Chris Claremont. He had talked about this before. He wanted Magneto to outmatch them so much that when he would finally be beaten by them, which wouldn't happen until 150, that it would mean something.
Yeah.
And they'd have one more meetup when Byrne drew them. That was again of like Cyclops seeing him. He's like, oh shit, it's Magneto. Guys, we got to go. And Wolverine's like, come on, bub, we can beat him.
Yeah, and again, they don't. Is this before or after Magneto's turned into a baby?
This is before.
Okay.
Like, yeah, when he gets
Picture makes it
turned.
look like it's before.
Well, so it says escaped his special cell, and there is a period of time where Magneto is in a special cell as a baby.
No, the John Byrne drawn one was the first time that happened, where at the start of it, he's like, well, hey, why aren't you a baby anymore? Oh, in this comic that's not X-Men, this Eric the Red made me not a baby anymore.
Yes.
So anyway, let's fight.
Anyway, let's please go.
Please don't ask me anymore. Let's just move on.
Hey, X-Men.
Also 1987, where they're like, why haven't the X-Men fought the Avengers or the Fantastic Four?
Yeah, and this is actually just reminds me of the Chrono Trigger box art now.
Oh, wow, you're right, man.
But this is a thing where like basically, it says on the card, Kitty Pryde's dying. They're like, Reed, can you help? And he's like, no, this machine won't fix her phasing powers. I can't do anything. And Magneto's like, I think you're lying. Get him. And so they start fighting, and then they're like, and then Dr. Doom, of course, finds out and is like, hey, I can do it. All you got to do is come over here and I'll help you. I'm a better scientist than Reed ever was. And they end up, Dr. Doom shit.
You're either with us or against us, Wolverine.
And then they end up fighting, and then they save Shadowcat. And they learn that Dr. Doom was behind the whole misunderstanding the whole time, hoping that the X-Men would kill the Fantastic Four.
Of course.
But this is in that time period, though, where like the X-Men were still just this. I hate using this phrase, ragtag whatever. But like they felt like that. They were not a cohesive team, and they made a lot of mistakes. And every issue was like, "I told you I was punching," like "I told you I was kicking," and they would just miscommunicate all the time. And then it just took time, and they worked it out. And it was fun to see them up against another team like Fantastic Four or Avengers, who were like, "We're a well-oiled machine." Man.
Well,
like,
that's also
get
why.
dunked.
That's also why the X-Men movies could probably go on forever because there's been like 8 million members of the X-Men. Like again, we've got this is pretty much the same team except replace no Quicksilver and replace Psylocke with Rogue.
Yeah.
The Rogue was plenty powerful. Like if Rogue had been on the other team when they were fighting the Avengers, I'd give him a chance. But
those haircuts are all an abomination.
Yeah.
I wish I was gayer so I could go off on a giant.
The 70s extended for a long time.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's
Dazzler's
awful.
Bowie-esque face paint. At least she was wearing the bandana in her Avengers fight. But
oh, that's bad.
it is just so weird. In '87, they're like, oh yeah, we should have them fight the X-Men.
Yeah, we should team up Wolverine with Ken Masters.
Well, by the mid '80s, the X-Men were the most popular team.
Yeah.
They were way more popular than Fantastic Four and the Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
speaking of which,
so
there we go. There's Wolverine the outfit I recognize.
So this is one of those things that I have the collection and have read half of and have not finished.
Really?
No, well, it was a classic X-Men on X-Men fight.
Yeah.
It was when the X Factor and the New Mutants and the X-Men all fought each other, as you can see on the back there.
But still took the time out of their day to pose for a picture together. Thanks, guys.
Well, boy, what a lame thing to have Dazzler replace Jean Grey on X Factor.
Yeah.
Like,
but this really is like the Mutant Registration Act that's kind of been teased and feared for a long time finally happens, and like sentiment against them is very high. And again, this is like where a lot of the allegories of civil rights or gay rights come in, of like, hey, this entire group of people is being targeted unfairly and being, a mass systemic campaign against them, both overt and covert, to make people hate them. And it's like, there are assholes, but there are assholes everywhere. Though
in Days of Future, this was post Days of Future Past, so even invoking the Registration Act means it makes you think, oh, bad stuff's gonna happen.
Like the specter of Days of Future Past was like driving, like, is this the step that leads to that future that they narrowly avoided? And like they're always trying to avoid that potential outcome where Sentinels descend from the sky and destroy everybody.
And it was also in this fight where Colossus is briefly paralyzed.
Oh, really?
He gets beat so bad by the Freedom Force they're fighting that he gets paralyzed. He eventually gets out of it. This lineup, like, this is Bagley. I know this is Bagley, but the interesting thing here is that you rarely get to see in these cards how tall Wolverine is.
Yeah.
Like
he's supposed to be.
This is his correct height.
He's supposed to be like 5'6" or something,
Yeah.
5'8". He's supposed to be short and he weighs like 600 pounds. He's supposed to be a short, impossibly heavy, hairy, ill-tempered jerk off. And the problem is Hugh Jackman is like 6 feet tall.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, and the more
and a beautiful man.
and the more popular he gets, the more tall people want him to be.
Yeah, that's why Ultimate Wolverine. It's like no.
He's 6 feet tall.
He's a regular. Yeah. So I've actually read this. So
no idea what this
Evolutionary War is a high evolutionary whose name is something really, I keep forgetting. It's like Warburton or something like that.
Yes.
But basically his idea is like, I'm all about like artificially advancing humanity into the next phase, and I'm going to go around the world and decide what gene pools get to come and go and stay or die, and I'm going to have extermination squads fly around, and if I determine this group of people, like the Morlocks or the Mole Men or whatever, if I decide that they're not worthy, I'm just going to send these genocidal robots in to take care of them. And so this story unfolds over annual. You can see there, all these annuals. So it's one of these stories that's told just in the annuals.
Well, we're in the annual section of famous battles, which in the 80s they decided instead of just an annual is so they can get a 13th book out for every book to go on the 5th week of a month, where they're like, oh, we don't have anything publishing on the 5th week. It's the 5th Wednesday of a month, which happens once a year. Okay, put out some annuals.
Yeah.
But they had just been disparate stories. They were just like, it's a cute little one-off. But
Usually one-offs,
But starting in the mid-'80s, they decided, no, we'll have an ongoing story across all of them.
Yep.
And that way, kids will have to buy all the annuals.
You gotta buy them all, dork.
And my favorite...
Over what kind of time period?
Well, I mean, the
it's
summer
It's all going to be 88. It's all going to be the same year. But like, I don't know if... I don't
story through a bunch of different issues over the period of a year, really?
I don't know. I don't remember the publication order.
Well, even if they, like, things... Okay, so the Spider-Man ones I remember, they were just side things. It was like, the High Evolutionary admits that... he helped make the clone of Gwen Stacy, who was walking around at that time, living in Paris, just like, oh, I'm not Gwen Stacy. I'm not a clone of somebody. She's now since been killed.
Explain Beast's outfit there? Jesus Christ.
That's his current X Factor. I mean, look at that team of losers he's facing.
Yeah.
They're all like my least favorite
Fucking
designs.
Grey
of
Hulk,
U.S.
U.S. Agent, Falcon, and
somebody
Beast
with a super scope.
Oh, come on. That's Hercules, with his rod of power.
Yeah.
That's not my favorite Hercules outfit, but yeah.
But it does a good job of making High Evolutionary look like a big behind-the-scenes scary guy, and he comes up again in the Abnett Landing era of cosmic stuff with Guardians of the Galaxy and Adam Warlock and Star-Lord and all. And he's presented as like, yeah, I'm above good and bad. Like, I'm trying to do this grand thing, and you're all weird for not letting me do it.
He's the kind of super scientist planner he can bring up for a big fight. Like, oh, he invented all these people. He's also famous for inventing the Knights of Wondergore, a bunch of animal men that lived in a mountain.
Boy, that chapter in the omnibus is a tough one.
The Knights of Wondergore are pretty goofy, including the the wet nurse cow woman who raised Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch.
Yeah.
Well, after their parents,
let's go. Let's go.
And here's another annual.
Yeah, the next year.
Yeah. So
this looks wonderfully lame.
This was when the Atlanteans struck back. Like, so there are. The white Atlanteans are, I believe, the minority, and the blue Atlanteans rose up and took it back from Namor, and they were going to finally do what Namor had failed to do: attack New York City and take over America and then the world. And the long-term plan was to bring back the god Set.
I was just about to ask you if that was a misprint.
No, because I think this is I've seen
Serpent God, dude.
I've seen this collected. There's a Avengers collection called like the Serpent Crown, and I can't remember if that's just what they call Atlantis Attacks now in collection form, or if there's a separate collection.
Those are, I believe the Serpent Crown is related to the Sons of the Serpent, though they worship Set too, but they're not related to Atlanteans.
I see.
But yeah,
it's a Nambla We're Not Killers thing.
Yes. So as you can see by the picture, the Avengers did most of the fighting. This was in the classic Captain America and the Avengers arcade outfits there.
Hey, look at that vision.
There it is. That's the team.
And that's why there's an Atlantis level in the game too. Like Atlantis was one of their big fighting places.
I guess Hawkeye should be there instead of Wonder Man, but
it gives them and it does give them good video game villains. Like, those are armies of dudes to fight. Though I only think of this book in Spider-Man terms again because I wasn't reading the Avengers in the late 80s, but I do recall that Spider-Man teamed up with She-Hulk to fight some Atlanteans, and I believe also the Abomination.
Sure.
All right.
Acts of Vengeance. So this is another. This wasn't annuals, but
everybody to scale there.
Loki can be giant sometimes.
This is just an imagination scene.
Yes.
But this is
it's our class picture lineup.
I have this omnibus, and it's one of the bigger ones. Like, it doesn't look like that much, but that's a lot of issues. Like, it says and many others, because it went almost. I swear to God, like every comic they published did this, because the whole idea
of annuals and the book.
Yeah. So the idea was, imagine if every hero and villain is on a dial, and Kingpin overlaps Daredevil, and Doom overlaps Fantastic Four.
You got the dud.
Imagine if you turn the dial one to the right, and now all the villains are like, hey, look, if the Fantastic Four have to fight Magneto, they've never fought him. They'll have no. I don't remember who fights who off the top of my head, but the idea is, if all the villains conspire together and they go after each other's hero, the heroes would be like, what the fuck? What is Mandarin doing here? Yeah. Like, I don't know what he's got 10 magic rings. What am I supposed to do? So that's their idea.
And it was all Loki's idea, too. Like, it came from... Loki was, I guess, the recruiter. He would visit each one and be like, hey, why don't you fight this guy instead?
That guy's talking about you.
I have never seen Captain America look that much like Banana Man.
You're right. But this was the villain team up. This was a really cool villain team up that you got to see. Shot. As a kid, I just loved seeing, like, oh yeah, what would Magneto say to Dr. Doom?
Yeah,
like,
it's really cool.
Would they even talk?
And big surprise, they are undone by their own greed and dickery.
But it's why they can't work together. And there's the Wizard should be happy to even invite her. They're like, thanks for inviting me, the Wizard.
One of my favorite issues from this omnibus is the one you would expect the least, which is Ultron and Daredevil.
Oh, yeah, wow.
And it is really cool where it's like a malfunctioning Ultron that's having an identity crisis, and Ultron's just standing in the woods, like, loudly freaking out, and Daredevil's just, like, in the woods, like, what the fuck Why the fuck is Ultron here? And
I am not able to take.
I cannot do anything against Ultron, and it's just this fun, like weird story of a personality disorder Ultron.
Wow.
Trying to figure out what it is, and then Daredevil like trying to like say. Yeah,
wow,
it's really cool.
And it's also where, if you saw earlier in this set, Cosmic Spider-Man, it happened during Act of Vengeance.
Oh, yeah,
he fights Magneto as part of that.
Yes, yeah.
Oh
boy!
I mean, Brett and I could talk about this all day.
Yeah,
though.
so this is also real quick.
Are they fighting in the opening of the X-Men movie or like a booger?
So it's that picture of Venom and that profile picture. These are literally the first two things I ever saw as Venom in my life.
Really?
So it's like 1990, fourth grade. Someone brings these cards to class, and I'm like, they show me this stack of cards, and this is the one on top. And I vaguely see Spider-Man because he's at the end of Muppet Babies, or like I see a toy occasionally because there's not that many toys either. But like Spider-Man was somehow in my brain, and I'm like, what is Venom? And then reading this card is like, whoa, like all this crazy shit that happened. Like, he got a suit on another planet. When did that happen? The suit was alive. What? And then he finds out he doesn't want it to bond with him because it's a symbiote that's living off of his life force.
The story of Spider-Man and Venom was told to me on many long school bus rides, and there's something beautiful about that.
And at this point, they had fought so few times that this is every fight.
This is like
explained in this.
And Venom's still really new and hot right now at the point of this card.
Venom's
being
so hot
printed.
right now. So as it explained there, Amazing Spider-Man 300 when he first appeared in full, actually I guess in 299. But their big fight happened in 300, created by David Michelin and Todd McFarlane. Maybe you heard of him. And then in 17 he came back. They had their awesome fight where the symbiote can't choose between the two of them, and he passes out.
Is it the last-ditch psychological trick?
Yeah.
Well, no, the last. Yeah. Well, okay, that was.
So 300 is the main one, and then McFarlane's run continues on. I think Inferno happens, and some other stuff goes on, and then 316 and 317. 316 is one of my favorite covers. It's where like Venom is over Spider-Man, and then 317 is like this final. I think it's the last time McFarlane draws Spider-Man and Venom. Maybe.
Yes. Yep.
Not Spider-Man, but Venom. But
they fight in like a park or something. He knocks Spider-Man and fights him in a park. I also remember in 316, like Spider-Man gets covered in cow blood and just freaks out. He's like, I'm covered in blood.
Venom dumps a whole thing of like bones and blood and meat on him.
Carries him?
And Spider-Man's just like, there's just a panel of him like, oh my god, like that's just too
This
fucking
is
much,
blood.
man.
No
and
funny jokes.
And he freaks out and just leaves. And the last thing he does is like, look. He's thinking like, well, fine. If the symbiote is probably still in love with me in some capacity, then fine. I will take my suit off and I'll just stand here on the beach and be like,
in his underwear,
and burn into my brain. And I'm like, he's just like, fine, you can have me. And then the symbiote tries to leave Venom, and Eddie Brock is like, what the fuck? And
but he'd already bonded to Eddie Brock, which is why he couldn't break.
He couldn't break it. So the strain of that just knocked him unconscious, and Spider-Man's able to get away.
And it's one of those classic things of like, well, Spider-Man can't physically beat Venom.
Yeah, he doesn't set off his spider sense.
Yep.
Because the symbiote remembers and is still kind of part of Spider-Man, so his spider sense is not activated, which made Venom such a cool villain because he can match him toe to toe. He knows who he is, and he has no interest in killing anyone else or fighting anyone else. He's like, I will just like say hi to your family, and that's great. Aunt May is such a sweetheart. That's fine.
What a great lady.
But you're dead.
Yeah.
So,
this is drawn by Mark Bagley, who would go on to draw his own crazy Venom arcs, including the Carnage Saga and Maximum Carnage.
Yep. Take it away, Henry.
I mean, there's honestly not much to tell to this one. This card only exists, Nick Fury versus Hydra, because Jim Sternacco is awesome. So, and he's still alive, and he looks like a real living Nick Fury if you've seen pictures of him.
Wow.
So Jim Sternacco took.
They couldn't get a better picture of Nick Fury there.
Looks like David Lynch.
Yeah, the wind is too much in here.
Hello.
So yeah, from 135 to 158, Sternacco took over the failing Nick Fury Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. storyline, but also in Strange Tales, so he gets spun off into his own book. And it's what introduced the Hydra characters into the series too. And it was just like, okay, spies are really hot right now. Yeah. We've got this little character named Nick Fury from the 40s. Let's say that he's now fight. He's now a super secret agent, lost an eye, and he's a spy. And then they create Hydra, who's basically Spectre from James Bond, and he fights them. And it also introduced the idea that they are also unstoppable, and then each one he kills, another head grows in its place. And so he fought Madam Hydra, and it's just the first Hydra story. That's why it's memorable.
Is this the run with all the cool like super 60s covers, or is that is that the actual Nick Fury comic?
Well, the Nick Fury comic had the best covers.
Okay,
but this is kind of where it began.
All right, everybody, that wraps up part 2 of our look at the famous battles from the Marvel set. We've still got all kinds of incredible cosmic battles, intimate personal battles, and everything in between. We'll see you then.